to another episode of Conversations with a Counselor. I'm Kim McGuire, the District School Counseling Coordinator, and I have with me here today Dr. Kim Jackson Allen, who is a counselor at Beach High School. And we also have with us Ms. Carol Lott, who has worked with our district for a number of years to help our students and families complete the FAFSA application. Welcome, Ms. Lott, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Kimberly and Dr. Jackson. I'm glad to be here with you, and I've got a lot of good information to share today.
Okay, so let's get started. Students and parents, if you don't know, October 1st, the FAFSA season will begin. And what is FAFSA? FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This application gives you access to money and other resources that will help you no matter if you're going to a 2-year institution, 4-year institution, if you're seeking graduate studies, like you're working on your master's or what have you. Everybody has to do the FAFSA for their post-secondary study. But today we're going to talk about, because financial aid is more than just the FAFSA, even though that opens the door to all of those other pieces. So Ms. Lott, can you just tell us briefly, what is financial aid?
Okay. Well, great. Financial aid is money to help students continue into their post-secondary life after high school. So it's money to help them cover those costs of attendance, such as the indirect and direct costs. So that deals with tuition, books and supplies, housing, meal plans, anything that's affiliated with your student going to school, that's under cost of attendance, and that's what financial aid helps pay for.
Okay, all right. And when you talk about those direct and indirect costs, we're talking about books, and we're also talking about sometimes the gas that may be associated if you have to travel. So we define what financial aid is. Can you tell us about some of the different types of financial aid that are available to students?
Sure, and that's why it's such a comprehensive package here and so many places to look for money. It's not just federal aid, which is Pell Grant, and student loans and parent loans, if you look at those. Financial aid can also be state aid, such as we have in Georgia, which is the HOPE program, scholarships and grants, 2 different programs there. Also, it's scholarships where it can be community scholarships. It also can be scholarships within the state other than HOPE. Also, national scholarships. Scholarships can also be affiliated with a person's, a student's interest, their major in college. Also, it can come from, say, community organizations, church organizations. Institutional money from the college level is a big part of the financial aid, and that needs to be taken care of as soon as the student knows what school they want to go to. So institutional money is a big one there as well.
Okay, and work study comes under that also, because if you're looking to have a job, which may help you earn money, and those jobs typically work a lot better with the student's class schedule, but that can also help supplement, and you get that as a part of financial aid if you apply and qualify, correct?
Correct, and that is part of the federal aid package right there. So federal aid actually covers the Pell Grant, work study, and your student and parent loans.
Okay, all right. So, speaking of that, one of the themes that we have used in the past couple of years is first you have to FAFSA, because that FAFSA opens the door to all of this aid. So can you tell us a little bit about that FAFSA? We've already said that it opens on October 1st, but can you tell us a little bit more about the FAFSA?
Yes, some people think that's a complicated piece, but really it's pretty straightforward. After October 1st and beyond, students can log into FAFSA, FAFSA.gov, and that is where they will find the application. There's a little preliminary part before, which would work better for students and parents, is that they will log in to FSAID, Federal Student Aid ID, and create their ID. That's really an ID as a signature. Students need this to sign into their FAFSA. Okay, so it's a quick thing to do, but log into FSA ID. Students, you will be creating your signature to log into the FAFSA. One parent will need an ID as well to sign this student's FAFSA and to hopefully move their tax information from the IRS onto the FAFSA. So log in there, make sure, students and parents, you verify an email address and a cell phone number in case you may forget your username and password. That will help you reset all of that. But it takes about 10-15 minutes to get that done. Easier to go ahead before you start your FAFSA. Once you're into the FAFSA form, it asks the students to start now, and they will log in with their FSA ID, which brings in a lot of it will pre-populate a lot of their pages. Just double check, make sure those are correct. As you work in this field, make sure you're having your correct Social Security number handy, and you can make sure that is the right one that you're entering in. It's important to note, though, that this requires student information and parent information, but it's all one form. Parents do not log in separately and work on it. You're adding to a student's FAFSA application, okay? And for seniors this year, you will have a choice of 2 applications, but for seniors, basically you'll start to college or your post-secondary institution fall of 2021. So that's the application you're looking to start work on after October 1st. 2021, 22, and you will use 2019 tax information. 2019 tax information.
So that's a great distinction that you've made there, because when you log in, students and parents, you will see an application that says 2020, 2021, but that's for students that are currently in college full-time. They have already graduated. So the form that you need to go ahead and complete, and that's available to you, is that 2021, 22 FAFSA form. And even if you're not planning to go to school until, let's say, January of 2022, you can still go ahead and complete that form now, so that you will already know what aid is available to you. Now, you mentioned having a Social Security number, but for our young men, don't they also have to be registered for selective service and those kind of things?
Yes, that's correct. Once they turn 18, they should register with selective service, and maybe they haven't already, but there will be a spot on the FAFSA that asks, do you want to go ahead and be registered? And yes, go ahead and do that, and that lets the FAFSA process. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and a lot of times that does.
Yeah, I'm
sorry,
If
go ahead.
you're not 18 at the time, maybe next month you turn 18. As long as you're 17, just say no when it understands all that. But 18 and older, go ahead and register.
Okay, all right. So again, sometimes you may have already been registered if you've registered to vote, or if you've gone to get a driver's license, your selective service may be completed. But for our young men, that is an important component of that FAFSA completion. Now, if a student, let's say, for example, perhaps is undocumented, are there some things that they can do if they do not have a Social Security number, or their parent perhaps may not have one? Are there options for those students?
Yes, they can go ahead and just enter in the zeros in those areas, but they will not be eligible for federal aid. But the school receives that information, and that's a different story of what they want, how they want to handle it. But yes, you can go ahead and complete it.
Okay, so still important, even if you think that you may not have that information, sometimes those colleges will use that information to make determinations about your eligibility. But you have to have that FAFSA completed in order for that to occur. So let's, while we're on that topic, let's talk about some of those myths that students and parents have. Dr. Jackson Allen, would you like to share one of the myths that perhaps you've heard, and then we can have Ms. Lott respond or answer that particular one?
Yes. Well, one of the things that I often hear even students and parents talk about is the fact that they make too much money. And what I always try to go back and tell them is that let's let the federal government make that decision. I always try to strongly encourage them to make sure that they're submitting an application. So for example, they may not receive as much money as a person who has lesser means, but at least they may be eligible for the opportunity. So we want to make sure that we emphasize to both parents and students that you apply, you submit the application, and then you let the federal government determine whether or not you're eligible or not. We want to make sure that you don't make those false assumptions and miss that money that's put on the table for you. So that's one of the things that I would definitely emphasize is apply, apply, apply.
And I would agree with that piece. You know, never make a judgment, especially given the time that we're in. I know a lot of the financial aid offices, you may say, well, in 2019, I had one job where I was making a lot more money. Now things have changed. If I put that information, I won't qualify. You still need to fill it out, because you can contact that financial aid office of the college that you're planning to attend to let them know that you've had a change in your status or what have you. Are there any other tips that you could give, Ms. Lott, for parents who may have experienced that, especially due to COVID and they've had a change in job situation?
Most definitely. That's considered a special circumstance. And there's other areas of that, such as high medical bills, a death of a family member, you know, maybe one of the parents, or the divorce situation. But yes, students and parents, go ahead with the 2019 taxes as they are. Contact, as you said, with documentation of those special circumstances, and that would give the college a chance to perform a professional judgment and go by the family's circumstance as they are now. Now, according to other myths, maybe students say, well, I haven't decided where I'm going to college. I haven't applied yet. But there again, those are two different processes, admissions and financial aid. So go ahead and list up to 10 colleges on the FAFSA. And then if once you apply and are accepted, that's when the college actually starts working on the on your financial aid piece. So go ahead and don't let that one stop you. And also, well, maybe I'm just not going to school. There again, go ahead and fill it out, because it's good for fall, spring, and summer 2022. And I think a lot of students just don't want to spend the time with it, but that's always good to go ahead. The colleges, remember, the colleges are going to request that information. They also get information off the FAFSA, such as residency, and for HOPE purposes too, and also for their institutional money, and there again for work study and loans and any other scholarships. Now, private scholarships sometimes ask for information off of the FAFSA too. So if you're thinking you're depending on regular just private monies, you still need some figures off of the FAFSA to give to these scholarship people that are giving money to you or considering you for money.
And that's so important, because a lot of people, another myth that I've heard is, oh, if I fill this out, I'm just going to qualify for loans and I don't want to have to pay back the loans. But one piece that you need to know is that a lot of scholarship organizations ask for your FAFSA information. They ask for something called the EFC, and that's your estimated family contribution. That measure is not necessarily saying, yes, your family has $1,000 to give you every month, but it is an estimate that allows that scholarship organization to determine how much aid they may be able to award you. As a matter of fact, some colleges will not consider you if they have not been able to at least look at your FAFSA information. So again, you know, don't think if I fill it out, all I'm going to get is loans, because there are scholarships that will come out, especially right now as colleges are making admissions decisions. And even in the spring, when you start to see more of your local scholarship applications, they will ask you, have you completed the FAFSA and what that EFC is? And so you want to have that information available so that you're able to provide it on the form. Another great point that you brought up, which will help us, discuss this piece, is about the Hope Scholarship. You need to have your FAFSA filled out for a lot of your state institutions in order to qualify or be reviewed for Hope eligibility. Can you tell us a little bit about the Hope programs?
Yes, that's a premier program we have in the state of Georgia. It's one of a kind, which is associated with our state. It comes through lottery funded, and that allows students to go anywhere in the state of Georgia through one of the many programs we have. Now, the Hope Scholarship and Zell Miller Scholarship, of course, are for your degree programs at public university system schools and private schools in Georgia, and that is looks at your Hope academic GPA from high school, Hope Scholarship. Of course, Zell looks at that as well, plus test scores. Now, maybe a student's going to a technical college. We have the Hope Grant and or the Zell Miller Grant that can help them, and that does not look at any GPA requirements out of high school. So.
Okay, so those Hope programs, again, you have Hope Scholarship, that you have to have a 3.0 academic GPA. So again, that's your English, math, science, social studies, as well as your world language courses. And you have to have a 3.0 in those classes. That is calculated by Georgia Student Finance. You have the Hope Grant program, and then you also have Zell Miller, for which you have to have a 3.7. Now with Zell Miller, right now, I know that for the class of 2020, they exempted them from some of the testing requirements. Has any decision been made for the class of 2021, or are they still discussing that possibility?
Well, for student graduates of 2020, they extended the testing requirements. They're still going to have those, but they extended the end of December to get the scores to us and to the colleges. But there's been no change in the Zell Miller scholarship requirements, which there again you said was a 3.7 academic GPA and either a 1200 SAT or a 26 composite ACT score. There's been no changes on that one. But just remember, students, this is a one setting test. So try to make your test count, because it does not mix and match test dates, one test setting. You will need either the 1200 or the 26 ACT composite.
Okay, so that's great information to have. You're still going to have those test scores for Zell Miller. So you want to make sure that you sign up for SAT or ACT as soon as possible so that you'll know your scores and then be able to submit them. Dr. Jackson Allen, what are some of the other myths that you've heard students share during your time as a school counselor?
Well, one of the other things that I wanted to add is that a lot of students and parents complain or they think that the process is cumbersome. And so with that in mind, I reflect back on the times when I had to complete a financial aid application, and it was actually a paper application, and the application was as thick as probably a book, I would say. So I think that the federal government, and along with the Georgia Student Finance Commission, has done an excellent job of streamlining this process. I've sat in financial aid sessions with presentations with Ms. Lott and other financial aid representatives from local institutions, and from beginning to finish, that estimated time has been sometimes 35 to 40 minutes. So when you look at that time frame and the benefit that you get from that time frame in terms of completing an application, what does 35 to 40 minutes cost you when it helps you to be able to pay for college? So I always try to use that parallel example to students, that it is not a tedious process. It is a step-by-step process. And in the opportunities that I've had to work with both Ms. Lott and, again, other representatives from financial aid offices, they've done a good job of explaining that process. It is not a tedious process. It does not require a lot of documentation. along with that, a lot of times we get that I don't want the federal government in my business. Well, unfortunately, the federal government is in your business. And so that's certainly, we don't want to use that as an excuse to not allow yourself an opportunity to have your education paid forward by the federal government. So if you're, again, if you think that you could potentially be eligible, or even if you're reluctant, I'm going to still encourage you to apply and let them tell you what you're eligible for or what you may not be eligible for, because there are a lot of options out there.
Yeah, I would agree. And even now there is an app that you can use to complete the FAFSA. So
Right.
if you're saying I don't have computer access, but if you have a smartphone, iPhone, Android, one of those, you can download the app and actually complete the FAFSA from your phone, and it's just as secure. I know the Department of Education even offers FAFSA chat hours if you have questions as you're going through. But our own Georgia Student Finance and our representative here, Ms. Lott, you currently have some appointments that are available if students and parents need assistance. Through a booking link on your page, and we'll post that on the screen here. You have some appointments available as well. Is that correct?
It's correct. Yes, it will be your time. It'll be a one-on-one time. We can work through email, or we can work through Zoom. We can work through any platform you need to. So just let me know the time you'd like to sign up. It looks at my schedule. So if there's a date and time available, it'll throw that out there to you, and you just, and it lets me know to be expecting a phone call or email or something from you as a student or parent. It's important too, though, to have students and parents together when we're working on this FAFSA. It goes much quicker and easier. Your information is more accurate, and it just makes the process a lot easier if both student and parent is there. And may I take a few minutes to talk about what a parent is as far as FAFSA purposes?
Yes, please do.
So when it talks about needing parent information, okay, that means one family member, now say from married parents here, it wants the biological parent's information or the adopted parent. There's a part on the FAFSA that asks about independent and dependent. Students, you are dependent on parent information until you're 24. Okay, but those questions on the FAFSA will help you gauge if you may be considered independent, such as if you're in legal guardianship, or maybe you're married or have children you support as a student more than half time. So different scenarios. So if you are able to check one of those boxes and document it to the college when the time comes, that means you are independent and would not need parent information. You will be your own family. But otherwise, again, students, you are dependent until you're 24. So you will need to supply parent information, biological parent or adopted parents only, no one else. Now, if the parents are, that earlier are married, they would be, both parents would need both parents' information, but only one signature. So only one parent needs to get the FSA ID. Say the parents are divorced, it would need the parents' information, the students that provides the most student financial support during that time. It would need that parent and that information. Okay, and then also if the parent has remarried, it would need step parent information as well. So that's also something a lot of parents do not agree with or do not understand, because step parent information, it wants a snapshot of the family's financial situation during the time you're completing this FAFSA.
Okay, so some great distinctions there as far as who actually qualifies as a parent or a legal guardian when you are completing this form. Again, as Dr. Jackson Allen mentioned, even from when I first started completing the FAFSA, going from the book to doing it now online, where it even gives you, when you're on a specific question, it will give you tips to help you identify, like what parent should I have complete this part, or what information, should I be listing here. So again, that's just something great to have. And all of this information on the U.S. Department of Education's website, they have some tips. And also we have videos posted on our own school counselor website that will help to walk students and parents through completing that FAFSA form. So the help is available, I think is what all of us are trying to say. The money is available.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing we need is for you to participate. This will benefit you and you alone if you complete that FAFSA form. So we've covered a lot here. Are there any, any other pieces, Ms. Lott, that you think would be important for our students and families to know with this financial aid process, or with the FAFSA piece specifically?
Yes, I think what I saw this summer was a lot of students, once they complete the FAFSA, they just shut it down. I want them to look at their confirmation page. That will come up on the screen immediately. It will also be emailed to the student's phone or their email. So we want you as a parent, student, to look at this. This gives an estimate of how much money you may receive. And then in about 3 to 5 days, you'll receive a link to student aid report. Now, this is after the FAFSA has been processed, and that will give you a clear idea of how much money you're going to receive from the federal government. This is exactly what the colleges see. The colleges that you've listed on the FAFSA will receive the same information. So once you're accepted, they use that information to come up with a financial aid award letter or award package. Start looking for those to come through your email or your inbox or on your school post-secondary account, because I've had many students just this summer, I didn't get anything. I don't know how much I was supposed to receive. Now I owe money, and they just were unprepared for the outcome of this. So this lets you know early on. That's why it's important to do this as soon as you can after October 1st. Look at your confirmation, start watching for your student aid report, and you have your federal money kind of set aside, what you need to do there. Then start checking your GA Futures account, tracking your Hope GPA students through your My Hope GPA, and that lets you know what's available for your state aid. So then that lets you spend time looking for private scholarships, community money, and things like that.
So I just want to underscore the importance of what Ms. Lott just spoke about in terms of follow-up regarding once you submit the application for financial aid, make sure you're following those steps and checking your emails periodically, because they're going to ask for updates, and there are going to be deadlines and timelines that you have to meet those obligations. So you want to make sure that you're not penalized for that. Again, additionally, the financial aid process does not stop once you submit the application. There is a process called verification, and I will ask Ms. Lott to go back and talk about that for a few minutes, that you may be selected for. It's almost like a mini audit. But then in the end, you may choose up to 10 colleges or universities that you're interested in, but your financial aid package is only going to one college of your choice. So once you've made your final decision about where you're going to college, then you're going to make contact with that financial aid office to verify that financial aid package. So follow-up is important. You're starting with submitting the application for the process, but you also have to follow this process through and see this process through the end. So please make sure you're checking your email for periodic updates regarding this process.
Yes, very good information. And maybe you're not receiving something from the school. It's still your responsibility as a student to reach out to that school. Things happen, can get lost. And speaking of verification, maybe you did not use the data retrieval tool to move tax information from the IRS to the FAFSA. They may ask you some questions on that. I cannot stress how much important that is to try to data retrieval tool. It makes it a lot easier for you as a parent, less less errors there as well, but schools will see that and they may ask for verification. Students, if you determine that you are an independent student, they may ask for, well, they will ask for documentation of that, or they may, something didn't look right about, that match up with birth dates, social security numbers, they just need more tax information. That's part of that verification process, and your financial aid package cannot be completed until they receive that information.
So very important. Yeah, very important. Make sure you follow up. Make sure you have a valid email address that you're going to keep up with. I have, run into a lot of times students, if they get a new phone or if they get something else, they will change their email address. So make sure that you have one that is consistent, that is also professional. Perhaps it should be your name or your first initial and your last name. You want to make sure that it is a consistent email and it's secure. And there are a lot of, Yahoo, Gmail, whatever method you use or platform you use, again, just make sure it's professional and something that you will keep up with, because that's how your colleges, that's how the FAFSA will communicate with you. Also, sometimes the institutions, once you've applied and been accepted, they will communicate with you through your institutional email. So you got to be sure that you are checking that as well, and that you keep up with that information so that if you need to turn in things, you can do so in a timely manner. And that's why we're pushing you to start this on October 1st or soon after, so that you will have plenty of time and you're not in a summer crunch to try to get this done. So I want to thank our guest for joining us again. I appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedules. I really appreciate Ms. Lott for always providing us with a wealth of information, being so helpful. Parents and students, don't forget, she's available to set up those individual appointments. We're also looking at some schools, even though we're virtual right now, being able to set up some of those virtual school-based appointments where it'll be just for your school on a given day. We perhaps will offer those, but for right now, you can get your own individual appointment so that you can get this done. So we really want to encourage you to do that. Again, thank you so much. Any closing words?
Thank you for letting me be a part of this. And there again, it's just repetition of what we're stressing is to get this done. And if you have any problems, even in the middle of working on the FAFSA, call me. I get calls on Saturdays and Sundays. Just call me. Or there again, you can reach out to Federal Student Aid and they have a live chat and you can talk to them on the phone or send them an email as well. So there again, following up, there is help. So do not hesitate to use it any time of the day or the night.
I just echo the sentiment of everything that we've discussed today. We want to make sure that we don't leave any money on the table. I strongly encourage you to apply. Definitely the earlier, the better. I think that the earlier you apply, the better opportunity you may have to have more than what I would consider sufficient funds. But please, please, please apply. Don't assume anything. Let them tell you.
Agreed. So take it from us. We've all done it. We've all been there, and we were successful with it, and we want you to be successful with it too, and we know that you can be. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of Conversations with a Counselor. This is our FAFSA edition. This is our kickoff. Again, please complete your FAFSA. First, you have to FAFSA. Please do that. Thank you for joining us.